Freeways. We have all been on one at least once in our lives. 4-lane, 6-lane, even 10-lane. They're a major part of any big city with a population above 10,000. Usually, these freeways are pretty old, built through neighborhoods, and in some cases, destroying them completely, especially when it may have a massive interchange on it. But that was post-war. That was the baby boomer age. That was the road-building revolution of the late 50s all the way to the 80s. But that's a story that many have talked about better than I could ever have. This major explosion was everywhere. Indianapolis, New York, Los Angeles, and even Austin. Some were through city freeways like Interstate 235 in Des Moines, Iowa, and some are ring roads, or if you're not British, beltways like I-495 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Even in the area I live in, the Quad Cities metro area of Davenport and Bettendorf, Iowa, and Rock Island and Moline, Illinois, there's a bypass to the south and west, Interstate 280. Technically, along with Interstate 80 to the north and east, it forms sort of a ring around the Quad Cities. But, just like Des Moines, it also has a through-city freeway in the form of Interstate 74, which was recently massively upgraded along with the new Mississippi River crossing. But what if I told you that Davenport could have had its own through-city freeway, all to itself? What would the city and the metro area have looked like? Where would it have fit in the local state and U.S. route system? How did this freeway create a system that is one of the most traveled road systems in the Quad City area? And why do I think that this could have been part of a bigger Rock Island and Davenport freeway? Find out now. I'm Charles, I'm a highway nerd, and today we're talking about the never-built North-South Freeway and its little brother, the CBD Bypass, that would have been built through Davenport, Iowa. Our Davenport story starts in the early 60s, 1964 to be exact. A base plan for 5 significant highway corridors labeled F1, F2, F3, F4, and F5 was drawn up. The corridor of interest for us is F5, a 4-lane road from Dubuque, Iowa, just north of the airport to be specific, to the Mississippi River in Davenport. This would have likely been just a 4-lane divided highway in the 1964 plans. I wish I could inform you all more about the 1964 highway plan, but I can't really find any more information on said plan. When this was announced, the cost to build was also revealed, with the freeway section in the city likely costing $24 million. For comparison, in 2023, that would be $232,908,387.10, or in simpler terms, $232.9 million. This was revealed by a news article in the Davenport Times-Democrat on August 14, 1964. On the same day, it was also revealed that the freeway would not have any bearing on the interstate system in the area. Basically, it wouldn't be shielded as an interstate. After that, it was pretty radio silent. No new info came. That was until May 1968. In 1968, a new highway plan was drafted. This plan would have much more traction and more corridors, but would grandfather in the 5 from the 1964 plan. This means Corridor F5, now renamed to Corridor Freeway 561, was back on the table, including the Davenport Freeway. The 1968 plan was more detailed, more fruitful, and certainly more loaded. In fact, the 561 corridor gained an addition, a bypass. Let's take a quick moment to talk about the CBD Bypass. If the Davenport Freeway is the red-headed stepchild in Davenport history, then the CBD Bypass is a nameless guy you passed once in a Walmart 3 states away that you'll never see again. There really isn't much to talk about with this. Aside from the detail that one proposed alignment would have seen a railroad to be realigned and sent underground for a short distance, maybe a mile or so. Of course, it would have been bulky, unsightly, and a bad use of space, as is any freeway built around this time. But it's not as interesting as the North-South Freeway, so it gets a passing mention. After the plan was drafted, it wouldn't be until 1973 for more information to arrive. In June 1973, a public community survey was published. This surveyed the entire corridor project area, which was a very large swath of Davenport. Basically, if you split Davenport between west, central, and east, the corridor project was all of central Davenport. The results of the survey, especially on the topic of the freeway, was mixed as expected. Some wanted it, some didn't. Some cited noise and pollution, some cited less congestion on the surface arterials. But it wouldn't be the end. Yet. A year later, on June 26, 1974, an article was published that discussed several hundreds of people who are not too happy about an unsightly freeway blasting through their backyards. Now, the freeway would have been wieldy, to say the least. Several historic houses in the Hamburg and Columbia Avenue historical districts would have been flattened to build this freeway, including several buildings downtown, including the building that now currently houses the German Heritage Center, right at the foot of the Centennial Bridge. It would have been a loss of history, and that's only one of the many reasons that many brought up against the freeway. But for now, it was still the likely option to go through. Oh, yeah, there were other options, 3 others to be precise. The main one was the freeways, with 2 alternative options for the North-South Freeway, an eastern alignment and a western alignment, and 2 options for the CBD Bypass, a northern alignment and a southern alignment. Option B was to improve Brady Street, and the final option was a do-nothing option, which is exactly how it sounds. Do absolutely fuck all. 1975 would be the most fruitful year in the project to date, and the last. On January 27th, the official corridor study was published. It had detailed drawings showing what could have been, and, most interestingly, blueprint-esque panels showing the layouts of all options, including measurements and finite details like where sewer culverts would be placed. It's a very interesting read, for sure. On February 14th, though, this was published. What this is the draft environmental statement for the freeway project. Now, of course, this isn't an actual copy. This was made used by printing out a Google Books scan of the actual thing. This was a very important item in the project. Of course it was. But, as it turns out, this would essentially act as a sort of last gasp of air for the project. And after this was published in February 1975, it would be a quick, short run to the end. And a short run it was. The idea was only still in consideration for a few more months. On July 17th, an article was published in the Davenport Times-Democrat discussing a report that gave numerous cons to the freeway. Things such as, quote, discouraged mass transit, and, quote, high construction costs. This would be the final article discussing a possible freeway. After this, it went radio silent for a couple months. The next update would come on the morning of September 4th. Quote, north-south 10-0, east-west 9-1. What was this? Well, it was the results of a Davenport City Council board vote held the day previous on what should happen. The freeway was no longer on the table. The one-way system was approved. Interestingly, it appears that between the July 17th article and September 3rd, the freeway option fell out of favor with the city council. Also interestingly, the city voted in favor of a central business district bypass, but at some point this fell through, as seen by the lack of a central business district bypass in Davenport. As it stood, after almost 11 years of being in a state of proposal and study, the Davenport Freeway was over, and the final draft of the environmental statement, published in June 1976, all but confirmed this. Construction on Brady Street, Harrison Street, and the new section between 35th and 59th Street began in late 1982, early 1983 at the earliest, and was completed by May 1984. The new section was named Welcome Way in 1989 as a result of a contest. Now, in the intro, I stated that this could have been a freeway going from I-80 to I-280, going through Davenport and Rock Island. This wasn't confirmed, never was confirmed, and I'm very likely wrong on this statement. But by the time the Davenport Freeway was proposed, the Centennial Freeway on the west side of Rock Island was built. In fact, it was built likely sometime in the 60s, maybe late 50s. I can't really find a concrete date. If the Davenport Freeway was built and the Centennial Bridge improved, both freeways combined could have created a true north-south freeway through the two biggest cities in the metro area. This, though, likely would have been an inadvertent result of the proposal for the north-south freeway. Today, Brady, Harrison, and Welcome Way are three of the busiest roads in the Quad Cities. They serve hundreds of businesses and even more residencies. But, as is the circle of city transport, the talks that brought a freeway proposal around in the first place have been quietly starting back up again. Traffic is at an all-time high. It's still not really the most viable option. But I'm not the one to give an answer. But no matter what the answer is, and what happens to Brady Street, Harrison Street, and Welcome Way in the future, don't expect a freeway blasting through your backyard anytime soon. I'm Charles. I'm a Weeb and a highway nerd. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye. Special thanks goes out to iowahighways.org, iowahighwayends.net, blogs.davenportlibrary.com, and the Richardson Sloan Special Collections Center for having physical copies of book resources used in research of or mentioned in this video, such as Davenport Community Survey, Spring 1973, Davenport Transportation Corridor Location Study, Draft Environmental Statement 561 North-South Facility and US 6167 CBD Bypass, and Final Environmental Statement and Location Study Report US 61 North-South Facility. Links to all websites and videos used and or mentioned in the video will be in the description. Thank you.